All right, welcome back. In this video, we're going to extend our if-else statement with some user input. So we're going to look at how we can get user input inside of our console. So therefore, we can just go ahead, instead of using println, we can use a function called Readln. So we had this age defined as 35 by default, but let's just say somebody isn't 35, somebody is 0, but actually what they are is something we need to enter in here. So we're going to store age readln. So what that means is we're going to read whatever the user has entered into our console. So now we run into this problem where the data types don't match. So what's on the right hand side of the equal sign doesn't match with what's on the left hand side of the equal sign, and that is a problem. So how can we fix that? We can make this an integer, toInt. So we can read whatever the user enters and make an integer out of it. So we use this dot, and then we use this function called toInt. What it does is it takes a string and parses, that's the name of it, parses that string into an integer number and then returns the result, which means whatever we enter will be converted. So we enter a string, even though it's a number, right? A number can also be a string. So if I enter 35, like so, this is still a string, even though what it contains is a number. So what we're doing here is we're parsing that string 35 into a number integer of type integer, and then we can store it inside of age. And suddenly this problem doesn't exist anymore. Now the thing is, we need to do that because otherwise we cannot make a comparison, because a string comparison of a number doesn't work. We need to do a comparison of an integer number. All right. So now we can read whatever the user has entered and then we convert it. So if we were to write it, let's say a little easier, we could store it like this. So entered value. So this would be a string. So entered value would be readln. So readline, whatever the user has written, and actually this is not going to be like this. Var entered value will be whatever the user has entered. And then what we can do is we can say age is going to be entered value toInt. So we convert that entered value into an integer. So that's basically what we have in one line here, broken down into two lines here. So this can also be a val because we're not going to override this value later on. So let me just comment this out and give you a better understanding. So here, read what the user has entered into the console and then convert the string variable into an int variable. Now you might see a few problems here. The first problem being, what if we don't enter a number? Well, let's actually try it out. So let's run our code. And what we'll see is it will ask us to enter something. It doesn't really ask us, but we can enter something. Let me enter 33 in here. So it says you can go into the club. Now, for you to understand better what you need to do, you can add something like println here. So we tell in the console that the user, in this case us, should enter something into the console. So please enter your age as a full number. Okay, so let's rerun our code and see what it's going to look like. So this will be a little more visible. So it says, please enter your age as a full number, or a whole number, I think is like the right word, right? Whole number. So I'm just going to enter 17 now. So once I enter 17 and press the enter key, what it will do is it will read that string of 17. It will convert that 17 into an integer and store it inside of age. And then it will compare if my age is greater 18 or not. If it is greater, it will say you can go into the club. If it isn't, it's going to say you are too young to go into the club. So let me press enter and it says you are too young to go into the club. So that's what our code here did. Now, let's look at this in a little more structured manner. So here you see everything on one screen. So the first thing is we define the age as 0. Then we tell the user to enter a whole number or the age as a whole number. Then we read that value that the user has entered. So basically our console is waiting at this point. It just waits for us to enter something. And then it converts what we have entered and does something with it with this if-else statement. So now let's run this again, but this time we are going to see that we don't enter a number. So let's enter ASDF. Now you see we get an error. So this is how you can actually break your application. We get a number format exception, which is basically an error saying, hey, the format that you have entered is not a number or not the type that I have expected. And what it did expect is actually an integer. All right. So that's how you can break your app. So be very careful with what you do. You can rerun your app and then you can enter another number, let's say 25, and it will say you can go into the club. So that's what an if and else does for you. And that's what you can do with Readln. So how you can read the user's input. So Readln is how you read the user's input inside of the console. With toInt, we convert into an integer if it is a string. And that's pretty much what we have learned in this video. So I hope you enjoyed it. In the next video, we're going to look at another little aspect of if and else, and that is the else if. So if you want to have more than just two conditions where it's just not just the age above 60 or 18, but there is another one where, for example, somebody is over 40 and you want to make sure that only young people go into the club because it's a club for younger people and people over 40 don't belong there or something like that. So we're going to build that in the next video. So let's do that.